SimLabs, the simulation-based lineup builder from RotoGrinders and Fantasy Labs, is your one-stop shop for quickly building expert correlated lineups based on our historical and simulated slate data. Now let's take a look at how easy it is to use. First off, you'll want to select your number of lineups. Next, select which contest type you're playing in, whether it's large field, small field, or single entry tournaments. You'll then decide how much flexibility you want on the range of the results. A higher percentage means more diversity in your lineups, but lowers how the model scores each lineup. From here, you can either force players in or out of lineups, as well as adjust your advanced weight settings. Want lineups that are heavily weighted towards simulation model outcomes? Bump up the simulation weight setting. Or maybe you're interested in seeing which lineups project the best and which players get in those lineups most often, in which case you'll increase the projection weight setting. Once you're satisfied, you can hit the Get Lineups button, and SimLabs immediately goes to work, combining every aspect of a DFS slate with your individual settings to give you expert lineups. You can review your lineups with the Exposure tab and easily bump up or lower your exposure to specific players in your portfolio with the click of a button. After you've crafted your portfolio of lineups to your liking, you can either download the CSV files directly or hit the Sync Lineups button and automatically import your lineups into Lineup HQ for further review. SimLabs from RotoGrinders and Fantasy Labs is available for premium subscribers only. Get yourself access now at a discount by clicking the link in the video.
Good morning, grinders. Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. It's Friday, March 15th. And as you see, you get SimLabs right now if you're a premium member by clicking on the link in the description below. $10 off your first month. Of course, we don't have it available for MMA just yet, but that's what we'll be talking about today. So hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Hit all the thumbs. Join with me, as usual, on Fridays. A man that we both split first place in the micro special $3 contest. Yes, this is how much volume you play. See, I play much less volume than you. So when I win the micro, it's a pretty good day for me. For you, I had to remind you, before the show, I had to remind you that you won it.
Yeah, you were like, didn't you win the micro last week? I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think that was the week before. You know, to be honest, I think I've won the big contest, like tied first place like 3 weeks in a row now. Or I think it's 2 out of the last 3 weeks. And then I think I had a second or third in like 555. So it's been like a few. Like, it's been a good month of UFC. And last card, to be honest, because it was pay-per-view, I was totally asleep by the Sean O'Malley fight. It was the second to last fight. No, even like the co-main event. I think I fell asleep just as the co-main event was starting. The Dustin Poirier and Benoit Saint-Denis. And then and woke up. And I won the micro, but I did not win the like $25, which was a much bigger payout. But I did have a UFC final seat too that I took down. I woke up to that little like notification on my phone because it's an extra thing when you win a ticket. It's like, you know, the DraftKings banner or whatever on the iPhone. So we're on a pretty good UFC roll here, and hopefully it continues this week. And if you are a fan of low-level women's MMA, boy, do I have the card for you.
Or just low-level MMA. You don't have to. It doesn't matter, women's or men's. We have a 13-fight card tomorrow. It is an earlier slate, so you're not going to fall asleep when we start at 4 o'clock Eastern. They're going to be doing the weigh-ins soon. So we got 13 fights, and it's a fight night, low-level card. So it's not like I would be shocked if someone misses weight by 7 pounds, or like something like that. So we're just going to analyze it as if all 13 fights are still scheduled as is. We got 1 5-round fight, the Tai Tuivasa Marcin Tybura fight, which is a heavyweight fight. And to me, I know I've been playing UFC DFS for maybe about 3 years, maybe 3.5 years. This feels like this feels old school to me. It seems like the past couple of weeks and months have been like weird slates with weird dynamics of like, oh, okay, we got like several humongous favorites. We got multiple 5-round fights. We got main events that are in the mid-range that you'll almost have to play type of things. To me, this feels like old school where, yeah, you got 2 or 3 like big favorites, but like most of everything in the middle is under there. These are under 2-1 favorites. I mean, these are anyone could win these fights, especially at the level that most of these fighters are at. And then we also have a 5-round fight where is not really a 5-round fight. Like, would you consider Tai Tuivasa versus Marcin Tybura to be like, I think if one of these guys wins a decision in 5 rounds, they're going to score 8 million points? I don't think so. I don't even think that the fight lasts to 5 rounds. So the fact that it's a 5-rounder really, you could almost treat it like it's a 3-round fight.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I try to listen to a lot of UFC content because I know DFS really well. I know UFC like less well. And most of the content that is out there is geared towards betting. And a lot of people are just like, oh, this is a kind of a crappy card. And there's a lot of fights they just kind of want to skip over when they're talking about all the fights. Like, this looks like a great card to me. I love any card where like my thoughts are totally different from like projected ownership and stuff like that. This is, and like bad main events are great because people just know that it's 5 rounds or it's, the last fight of the night or whatever the case might be. And, the biggest name fighters, well, you got to pick one of Tybura or Tuivasa for your lineups. You actually don't, because this fight is favored to get out of the first round and favored to end before the second round. And it's 2 pretty low volume fighters. So if it happens that way, there's a good chance that this fight doesn't end, it doesn't land on the winning lineup. Now it could, because either obviously it doesn't take much to push that early, second round finish or mid second round finish or whatever into the late first. In which case, well, then there is a good chance that the winning fighter lands on the winning lineup. But I think it's going to be overowned. And like right now, we've got Tuivasa, I think is the highest owned fighter or the second highest owned fighter. And I'm not interested in rostering. Like I definitely do not want to be over the field, I think, on this main event.
The only thing that the main event has for it is that it is in the direct mid-range of 8,300, 7,900. And if someone gets a second round finish and scores 90, 88, I mean, it's still possible to make it's more likely than if this fight was a $9,000, $7,200 type of fight where the favorite, like, it doesn't get out. But we have some of those type of fights, I believe. The biggest favorite on the slate, most expensive fight, Kennedy Nzechukwu, -700 favorite over Ovince St. Preux, -400 inside the distance. Ovince St. Preux is like 41 years old, low volume, does have power, but slow, and I mean, plus 750 inside the distance at 6,800. But Kennedy Nzechukwu is not like he's not really a grappler, although I guess he can. He's typically a lower volume and a slower starter. I think there's a very good chance that he does finish Ovince St. Preux. But to me, like, outside of the quick win bonus, like, he could win in the first round and not score 100. I mean, like, he could win in the first round and maybe barely score over 100. Like, it'd be a 104 or something like that with 8 significant strikes landed. So I know that, last week with, the guy that always wins in 12 seconds, he can't do that again. Of course, he did it again. To me, I think this is, I don't want to say a similar situation. I just think Ovince St. Preux could survive 60 seconds. Do I really want to play Kennedy Nzechukwu in especially large field contests at like 40+% ownership?
Yeah, this is this is exactly what I thought when I like the order you're going in is the exact order that I thought of naturally when I looked at this card and started looking at the prices. Because Kennedy Njoku has 2 wins in the UFC that are under 60 points, which is almost like difficult to like. That's almost impossible. Like there may not be that many wins under 60 points the last few years. Like Kennedy Njoku has 2 of them. And he's the highest priced fighter on the card, and he's projected for to be about the highest owned. We've got Tuivasa, I think, at 49% projected ownership, and Kennedy at 47%. And so, like, yeah, I'm immediately interested in fading or being under the field, on the 2 most popular fighters that we've got projected in terms of ownership. In Njoku, you are just sweating that first round. Because he's just not high volume. So no, and he's I think 40 something percent chance.
To me, John, for large field, I'm sweating like 60 seconds. I mean,
yeah,
on this card, I mean, it's not like these guys like guys that are like smothering ground and pound guys. Like it's possible that a first round win could still be 130 points even without the quick win bonus, but like these are like if Kennedy Njoku, he's probably if it gets to the end of the first round, he's thrown at max like 20 significant strikes. So like it feels like even if he wins in the first round with a knockdown, maybe he gets to 110, maybe at 108, and at 9,400. I mean, there are guys lower price that I could see easily scoring 110 and wins.
Exactly.
Like if he gets to the second round, I don't see how unless he's has multi knockdowns, right? Or if it's one of these fights where the ref it doesn't decide to stop the fight and just lets like a guy against the fence get like ravaged for 100 significant strikes. It's hard for me to see how anything past the first round, like if Kenny Njoku doesn't score at least 110 points, I would consider that a bust at 9,400. And I think the path for that score is just so narrow that in small field contests, if you're playing the 555 and you're like, what if you get 94 points from him and you get 6 wins and you get a little leverage, you could still win the 555, but that ain't gonna work for any of the large field stuff. That like people are they're gonna look at minus 400 and go, how do I not jam this guy in? And our projections, like for that inside the distance line, to put things into perspective, Despania, right? That guy last week, Dane had to artificially deflate his ceiling projection because the median was just so ridiculous because there's so many outcomes where he wins with a quick win bonus. It was just like weighted too much on that side. So like people were like optimizing lineups by median and going like, how does this guy ever score like just 92 points? Like he doesn't, it's either he's going to score 130 or he's going to score like 60. Like he's never going to be over there. Our projection for Kennedy Njoku is like 86 as a median, which is most of the time, if you see a minus 700 win, minus 400 inside the distance line fighter, his median projection is going to be in the mid to high 90s.
Yeah.
It just highlights the fact that his range his range of outcomes in that like 55 to 70 percentile range, like, is nice. It's like you want to just kind of go in and go, yeah, most of the time I'm going to get somewhere between 75 and 95. A lot of the time. And you're going to get a good amount of 95 to 110s, but like the amount of 125s, like that, you're not going to get many zeros, right? He's not going to lose as often. So I just feel as if like even our projections don't even justify like 40+% ownership, even from a median standpoint.
Yeah, there's some outlier outcomes that I think you actually kind of described. Like, so I do get concerned that, like, yeah, what if it's the end of the first round, and OSP like has tripped or something, and Kennedy's just on top of him, pounding him in the face, and the ref waves it off as the second, as we get to the last second of the first round or something, and that could even happen in the second round. It's something like that. There are some outlier, I think, scenarios. There's also a scenario where the whole card is just a little bit lower scoring. And we'll see how many fights we have. Like, if we keep all of the fights, that's not that likely. Like, something's going to happen. Like, somebody's going to get, you're going to have a collection of fighters to get over 100 points, most likely. But we've seen some like lower scoring cards, where maybe if Njoku gets like a 90 point win, even at 9,400, that's enough. But like, I'm confident. We don't have like our simulation results out yet. That usually comes like later today. But I'm guessing that the sim results are going to hate Kennedy Njoku because he's so expensive to be like absolutely optimal. His chances are just not that high, and he's going to be one of the most negative like leverage or fighters, however you want to describe it, where like his ownership is going to be way higher than his actual optimal percentage. So that's great. Like first two highest owned fighters on the card. I am interested in being under the field. I've even thought about the idea, like maybe for the large field contest, if I'm going to max that out, maybe I want to put a bet of like equal dollar amount on Njoku in the first round, saying that like if he gets, that way I'm almost kind of hedged, where if he gets the first round finish, I win money, and if he doesn't, then totally fade him in the large field contest, something like that. And then if he doesn't get the first round finish, suddenly I'm in a much better situation, having like faded him in the large field contest, like 150 lineups or however many I decide to do.
Other high-end fighters, expensive fighters, I don't agree with our current ownership. I think Mike Davis is going to be more popular than Gerald Meerschaert. I think that's going to flip around. Those two fights, like, you have Davis versus Natan Levy, and Natan Levy's not a bad fighter, right? But Mike Davis, for like DFS purposes, a lot of takedowns, like this fight most likely goes the distance. Natan Levy has the highest ITD likely. To put things into perspective, like Natan Levy could win this fight, but like when Pani Kianzad and St. Preux have better chances of winning inside the distance, that shows you how little finishing equity Levy has. I think if you wanted to play Levy in cash games or something, I think that's fine, but I think his ceiling is extremely limited if Mike Davis is going to be attempting like 16 takedowns. Now, Levy could grapple a little bit himself, but Mike Davis is a minus 500 favorite, and Meerschaert's minus 238 favorite. Meerschaert has a better inside the distance line at minus 125. He's facing Brian Barberena, and a lot of that number comes into the fact that Brian Barberena is old, damaged, and can't defend takedowns. And Meerschaert is someone that can't defend a punch, but is elite submission grappler. Typically, we see Meerschaert in like the 7Ks because typically he's an underdog against most other people. I get the sense that like more people, I think Meerschaert will still be owned, but I think Mike Davis will be more likely to be 35% owned and Meerschaert more like 26% owned. They'll probably still be more owned than Moises up here also, because I think Moises is not, let's just say, not DFS friendly. Like he'll get a submission, yeah, sure, but I mean, he won't score many points in the process. So out of these other 9K options, and obviously there's Macy Chiasson there, and plus 285 inside the distance against Pani Kianzad. What if you're not playing Njoku at the top of your lineups? What are your thoughts on these other 9K guys?
Yeah, so I think Mike Davis is the one that I'm most interested in. And like you said, he's just high volume, and he can be high volume with strikes. He can be high volume with takedowns. That's perfect. And he's like 80% to win his fight. And I agree. I think he's going to be high round, and it's either people using projections are going to project him to score well, or people just game long watching. Right? I mean, if you click on his name in the DraftKings app, right, and you see his previous scores, he's somebody that's put up over 100 points in a decision. He's put up over 100 points in a knockout. Or in a finish. So that's a fighter that I'm interested in owning, more so than Njoku, because he's cheaper and I think more likely to score a slate breaking score and a win. And I'm interested in owning him more than Tuivasa, who could get a win, but just a very low scoring win. And Tuivasa is cheaper, but I think Mike Davis might have the most upside on the card. So that's probably the fighter in the 9Ks that I'm most interested in.
And how about Mearshart? Are you willing to take? Gerald Mearshart chalk is. I mean, the dude could crumble to one punch, but I don't know if Brian Barberena's the one to talk about this. I mean, he's minus 125 inside the distance, his 7% chance win probability. The thing about Mearshart's, win condition is that it's probably going to come through wrestling and a submission. And I'm much more willing to take a shot on a guy like that because it gives the second pass. I mean, the same thing for Mike Davis. I mean, we're making like Kenny Njoku is to score 110 points, needs to do it striking in a single punch.
Yeah.
Yet with these other guys, like Mearshart could score 100 points even in a decision win if he just takes down Barberena for all 3 rounds and just never gets the submission. That's fun. I like having fighters that have multiple paths to 100 points. The thing is that you're always sweating the one when they stand the guys up in the beginning of the round. I mean, Barberena isn't a good fighter, but he has no problem brawling. He has no problem throwing. And Mearshart, I mean, we've seen multiple times that, if he can't get you down and he can't get you back, it's his face by the end of the fight. It sometimes looks unrecognizable.
Yeah. I think I'm going to end up even with the field on Mearshart, I think. And I think he's going to come in under our projected ownership. So I plan to roster him at under our projected ownership. But I agree. I think Davis will be higher owned. So I'm going to do what I think is basically going to put me even with the field with Mearshart. I think Mearshart and Taiga Moises are essentially similar statistically, and where I think they'll get a takedown or two. Either one is live for a first round finish. But they're both expensive, so I'd actually rather side with Mearshart. I think because the savings, $200 savings. Mearshart can do a little bit less. It's just this one's tough to predict what's going to happen. I agree. Barberena is kind of a brawler, and so he'll go out there and he'll put himself in a position where he could get finished early. Then that gives Mearshart a really good score. So Mearshart's not a fighter I really want to roster him. But I could see him. I could see Mearshart putting up a big score just on because Barberena is going out there and letting himself get punched or letting himself get finished early with some kind of submission or something like that.
Let's take a look at the mid-range fights. I think some of these guys have a chance of outscoring the higher priced fighters depending on the win conditions. The most interesting 2 fights to me in this range, I think the 2 most important fights, I mean, some of them are close. I mean, Isaac Delgarian, 8,500 versus Christian Rodriguez, 7,700. Delgarian, I think, is going to be 30+% owned because you take a look at how he went. He wrestles and he's won every fight. He's every fight he's been in has ended in the first round, right? He's new. He doesn't have much UFC experience, but even as an amateur, his fights ended in the first round. He knocked out Francis Marshall, which is not even a normal win condition for him, right? In his UFC debut. And then you have Christian Rodriguez, who I wouldn't consider a good fighter, but this guy just, I don't know. He survives enough. It's like one of these guys where I can't say what he does well, but he could last 3 rounds and never quit. And sometimes that's just good enough to beat people that are like, if they'll get, we've never seen Bulgarian get out of the first round, and it's quite possible round 2 starts and he's dead. And Christian Rodriguez just wins based on the fact that his cardio is better. But it also could be that Bulgarian wins, it gets a quick win bonus or something. And similar to Jafel Filio, 8,700 versus Ode Osborne at 7,500. I think Filio is going to be one of the popular guys in the mid-range. Obviously, he's someone that first round submission upside. He could also knock you out. And Ode Osborne is the type of guy where what does he really do? He's got his floor is 0, and his ceiling, you got 5 minutes, because like he's really low volume, single striking. If he knocks you out, there you go. But if he doesn't, like he's probably losing a decision. From a ceiling perspective, Filio has so much more ceiling in this matchup. How you handling these fights? Are you these are guys like Filio and Bulgarian that could break the slate at cheaper prices than these 9K people. So I'm assuming our Sims tool is going to show them at a fairly high optimal rate, but there are plenty of paths for them to fail.
Yeah. So one way I look at this card, I think the 3 most expensive fights, the ones we kind of gone over, Njoku, Taigo Moises, and Mike Davis. So those guys all have like very strong chances to win their fights. Like that's kind of lopsided lines, at least minus 300, minus 400. They've each got a 75% chance or greater of winning their fight. So I'm not super interested in the underdogs in those fights. OSP, Mitch Ramirez, and Natan Levy, just because they don't have much chance to win. And so in my 150 set, I'll probably be over the field on those like really cheap underdogs, but only because like they're going to see single digit ownership. So yeah, I guess Natan Levy, I guess we've got it 20% owned, which is a little bit surprising. I think it'll be a little bit under that. I don't even know if he has 20% chance of winning the fight. But so the rest of the fights though, like starting at about Meerschaert down, are actually all pretty closely aligned. Like Meerschaert has a 67% chance of winning his fight. Like that's not great at 9,100. And so every other fight in this mid range is about the same. And some of these guys can be pretty high scoring, but they can, but also anyone can lose. Because there's no, sometimes we see like the 9,300, 9,200, 9,100 fighters, having really strong odds to win or strong odds to win in the first round. All these fighters are about the same. So any one of them can break the slate, and but they're all going to have different ownerships. So I am interested in just being over the field on the underowned fighters as a basic like mid-range summary. So yeah, I think like Bulgarian is an interesting fighter. He's a fighter that he's kind of similar to like Meerschaert or Moises, but just $800 or $600 cheaper. Brian Battle, Fiho. These are fighters who can get the first round win. Fiho's a grappler, so he could get a bunch of takedowns, maybe. But yeah, they could also, any of them could bust, any of them could lose. And I'm actually a little bit interested in being over the field on the female fighters. That's why I kind of opened the thing with if you like low level women's UFC, I think people are going to skip over a lot of these female fighters, and they're going to be looking for these kind of first round finishes from the male fighters that might not happen. And you've actually got some of the female fighters like Chiason, Josiane Nunez, and then the Corey McKenna, Jacqueline Emerim fights. The female fighters have just as good of a chance of maybe throwing up some high volume or like Josiane Nunez can rack up significant strikes, or she can get a knockout. Like not many female fighters actually that capable of getting a knockout. Chelsea Chandler, although she had like the meme thing where she's like running away from Norma Dumont in her last fight, like she finished her first fight with a knockout. I think Julia Stoliarenko. Stoliarenko actually like took her down, and it looked like she was going to get some submission. And Chelsea Chandler was able to get like the reversal, I think, and just started pounding her in the face and got an knockout. Like I'm interested in these women fighters who can throw high volume or can get a knockout. And I think they're going to go on their own. So yeah, I think in terms of the mid range, I think what I'm interested in is being over the field and the lower owned fighters, and I think in a lot of cases that's going to be the female fighters.
You come out with you're coming out with a takedowns article today.
Yeah, and this is one where like I'm actually kind of excited about writing up some of these underdogs. Like I haven't made my exact picks yet, but I do. I think this is one where a lot of the underdogs, and I'm not necessarily like targeting heavily the super cheap underdogs, but like basically anyone above that, like anyone above Levy, I think is that possible takedown scrolls takedown candidate. So yeah, I'm gonna be out there with the takedowns article probably later tonight. And then, after we'll wrap up the crunch time or whatever. I think I'm on Grinders Live actually. And then, I'll finish NBA, get on the takedowns article, have the expert survey out. So we'll have our simulation results out. Hopefully all in time for, people if they want to take a look at the fights later tonight. And then we'll be on crunch time tomorrow before the event. I think it might be a little bit before the event. With Mike Brown, H3 Buddha.
Right, that'll be 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. But the Ground and Pound podcast should come out today with Liam and Mike. The Liam's breakdown, the expert survey, obviously our updated projections, our ownership, our simulation output later today. That's all for premium members, right? And hopefully at some point they'll add MMA to SimLabs. You can get that. You get that for MPGA, NBA, tonight's NBA, NFL. I'm going to guess, I'm crossing my fingers that MLB in 2 weeks, we're going to have SimLabs for that. So that's part of your RotoGrinders subscription. It's like an all-you-can-eat package. Go get it. You get props and pick'em stuff. Our expert picks there. Our pick'em tool, which, I mean, if you're playing pick six, easy on DraftKings pick six. I mean, you could set up your cards on pick six in a matter of like 3 minutes. Just with our projections, you can download our statistical projections. You can do anything you want here. So John, you'll be on tomorrow 1 p.m. for the. You're also on NBA. You're on. It seems like a busy day for you today. You're on everything.
Yeah, I actually had no idea it was 1 o'clock tomorrow, but it looks like it's on schedule for 1 o'clock. I think the card locks a few hours later. I think it's like at 4 p.m. So yeah, but we'll be on at 1 o'clock, which is great because I got my nephew's birthday party after that, so it don't have to go late to the party. And then NBA tonight on Grinders Live. So yeah, it's got a busy schedule, but that's good. A lot of stuff going on. We still got the golf tournament going on, so if you did your DFS golf lineups, checking that out. And yeah, it should be a good weekend.
Yep. So build your lineups in Lineup HQ. Hit that like button on your way out the door. You know how much I like the thummy thumbs. Hit the thumbs up button. Hit the notification bell to always know when we go live. There'll be Grinders Live later today, 5 o'clock. Crunch time, 6 o'clock for NBA tonight. And, crunch time tomorrow for MMA. We got more NBA overnight. 2 weeks from now, we got baseball coming back. So you'll get plenty of baseball shows as well. I'll be back on Monday with James McCool. I'm feeling much better. I mean, I took off part of this week because I had the flu, but I'm getting back. I'm 85% of the way there. So I'll be back with you next week talking about all things you're thinking about in daily fantasy props and pick'em on RotoGrinders Today.